What's good, friends list, episode 122 of the Gamecast coming at you. We've finally gotten to see a new look at Halo Infinite's campaign, and while the timing was cutting it pretty close, many fans were relieved to actually see marginal improvements since its last showing. But will it be the refresh the franchise needs? So, this week, we break down all the new info regarding Halo Infinite's campaign overview, and why its new approach to open environment could both be a smash hit or a failure. Does Halo CE mixed with Far Cry seem like your thing? Then stick around as we dissect this bad boy. Also, Vicarious Visions fully becomes one with Blizzard, Concerned Ape's newest project gets revealed, and much, much more coming up on the newest jam-packed episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So, be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all that jazz that I tell you every week, wherever you get a podcast at, jump on us. That sounded weird. Anyways, though, follow us on Twitter as well, if you don't mind. At GPGC Podcast, stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like and our dope giveaways. What I meant to say was, so get on it, but somehow came out and jump on us. So, yeah, you're at least having a better day than me. Anyways, though, I'm your host as always, Travis White, aka Traveless, on most internet platforms. Joining me as always, my partner in crime, the best man, Mike Peapack. Mike, what is good? What is going on? And I have a feeling you're going to talk about your Diablo 2 addiction before we jump into it too much. I'm just going to...
What do you mean?
Just laying it out there. Just laying it out.
The amount that I play that is not normal?
Well... No, I shouldn't say that.
Indicative of an addiction?
No, I mean, we just need to have a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a welcoming environment here. No,
I'm gonna need an intervention at this point.
No, but it's definitely, it seems like one of those things that I find it so interesting because of the criticisms you have with this game, but you're clearly getting this enjoyment out of this experience that you've wanted for so long. A lot of people have wanted for so long. Mm-hmm. And that mindset of, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing that, hey, we love this, give us more of this. You're finally getting that. You're digging into it, but you still have a lot of these criticisms with it. What is this thing that keeps driving you back to this game? I mean, you could be playing anything else, MCC, your whole Steam library, things like that, like whatever. The new Phasmophobia stuff that we still need to play. But, you know, why is it do you keep coming back to this and devoting hours and hours into this game that you have criticized but clearly love very much?
Yeah, this is definitely a little bit of an...
And that's not a bad thing, trust me. I love a lot of shitty games, movies. I shouldn't say shitty, but a lot of quote-unquote bad games, bad movies, whatever. Like, I still find enjoyment out of them. But, like, I'm just curious as to how it's evolved into this like teeter-totter almost of this balancing act of your time that you're like, man, I have a lot of criticism about this, but I'm really fucking enjoying my time playing this at the same time.
Yeah, I find myself, Diablo 2 has always been a game that, like, every once in a while I'll always go back to. It's just always been that way ever since 2001 when the game first came out, and my brother I got to play it because my brother had it because you know, we played Diablo 1. So it's always been one of those games that I've always gone back here and there and really dug myself back into for a brief amount of time. Then I've usually gotten over it because there's just been like reasons for me to move on. Like, oh, a new ladder is resetting tomorrow. I have a little bit of free time. I'll make a sorceress. I'll be level 86. I'll be the 13th ranked sorceress in the world in softcore for a little bit, and then I'll move on because I just don't want to devote that much more time into it. So I've always gone back to the game, and it's something about the ARPG genre that gets me. Like, creating a character and digging back into this game, and I think I kind of figured out what it is. You knowing me, it's no secret. Like, I like to gamble. Like, I don't have like a gambling problem, but I don't mind mixing it up and
hell
like
yeah.
betting on sports, betting on things of that nature. And I feel like the real reason why I've gotten into Diablo, especially now, but even when I was younger, I knew that there was like basically what we'd call like GG gear. There's like the optimal gear that you can get for characters. And some of it's like 1 in 5,000, some of it's 1 in 100,000 that you find these drops whenever you're like magic finding. So I think magic finding is what really got me to get into this game as much as humanly possible back when I was a little bit younger. And even now, I find myself spending a lot of time magic finding. And I found myself that once I magic find for a long time and I find some of this GG gear for stuff, I find other GG gear for other characters. Like, for instance, I found gear that is useful, especially on an Amazon. So I want to level up an Amazon because Amazons are really good at farming cows massively, like massive amounts of cows really fast. And that's the easiest way for you to find high runes that'll help you with like the Hammerden that I built because I found Hammerden GG gear. So it's like this revolving door of like, I built a sorceress, a blizzard sorceress first, pack her with like 400 magic find. She does like 7,000 damage with my blizzards, so I can clear bosses relatively quickly. I can clear the ancient tunnels. I find GG gear for different characters, and then I want to make those characters. And I'm going to use my Hammerden as like, I'm going to farm Uber Tristram run so I can farm torches, so I can get even more endgame GG gear for characters. And it's like kind of like a weird, like, it's a tough basically revolving door of like constantly wanting to find better and better gear and finding more and more shit. And even though the ladder doesn't exist yet, it just frees me up to do other things with the game that I necessarily wouldn't have tried or wouldn't have done. So that's pretty much what it is for me. I feel like it's a part like gambling thing. Like, oh, I'm going to go do 100 Mephisto runs, and what am I going to find? Am I going to finally find that piece of gear I'm looking for? Like, I feel like that kind of gives me a huge boost of dopamine, like whenever you're farming this gear. So I feel like the dopamine release that you get whenever you find that gear is a huge part of it. And also just simply enjoying the game for pretty much all my life is also, part of the battle there. So that would probably be the biggest reason why, those would be the biggest reasons why I find myself continuously going back to this crack pipe, if you will. But I wouldn't, really change it for anything, because at the end of the day, one of the reasons why I have criticisms for this game continuously is because I want it to be pretty damn near perfect, right? I want it to be as close to perfect as humanly possible. And the only way to get it to that point is if you have these constructive criticisms that you want it to be better. Because at the end of the day, I know whenever you're playing this game, D2R, like Diablo 4 is going to be a lot different than Diablo 2. And rightfully so. Just like Age of Empires 4 that released today is a lot different than Age of Empires 2. And rightfully so, because you need to grow and you need to expand and you need to get better. But that doesn't mean that, like, basically I just don't want them to give us D2R and then have us, like, basically move on with our lives and be like, okay, you got what you wanted, now move on. Like, I want it to be the perfect experience, because we've been playing D2 for 20 years. D2R might carry me through for another 20 years. You never know. Just with all the content that's here and everything of that nature, I'm excited to see where we go and, how far we can push it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, there is nothing wrong with that by, in the least little bit, considering I'm always one of those people that if you're getting enjoyment out of a game, I don't give a shit what a Metacritic score says. I don't care what consensus says. If you're finding enjoyment out of it, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I play a lot of games that, it looks interesting. I want to try it. Yeah, it may not have gotten the best score out there, but I find enjoyment out of it. Just because, like, there's nothing wrong with that. And like the things you like, So But I totally agree with you in the sense of, I don't want to say holding somebody's feet to the fire, but saying, hey, okay, you gave us this product. We're giving you constructive feedback not because, oh, we're pissed that you gave it to us. No. You started the conversation with us. You opened the door for this. You gave us the first step of this. We just want this to just be better than, like, we're just trying to help you make it exactly what you want and get more people into the door, make it a more polished product, more of the experience that we, the fans, have been wanting, which in then turn will have us say, hey, you like Grim Dawn. Hey, you like Diablo, classic Diablo experience. Hey, you like Pillars of Eternity. You should try out D2R. Like, yes, a Metacritic score will help that. And, it did get good scores on release, but, there are things with this game that, a lot of people who are more of the hardcore fan base, who would traditionally recommend some of these things to other people, like, who have similar tastes in hardcore audiences of PC gaming or just traditional RPG fans, might not be doing that right now. So, and especially too after the debacle with Warcraft 3 and whatnot, a lot of people who like Blizzard games just don't want them to go down that. Blizzard needs all the help it can get right now. In a lot of ways. They need all the help they can get right now. And I'm not saying that in a, like, they deserve help, but more in a sense of they need all the goodwill they can right now for the sense, because what they embodied and allowed and, what's the word I'm looking for, Mike? I guess, just fostered that, what happened there to grow over time.
That culture.
Yeah. That nothing that they release or do is going to change that, at least for the time being. It is not going to make that disappear by any means, but, focusing on what, tackling obviously all those big things that they need to tackle from an ethical standpoint, but in terms of their work, focusing on building good grace with their community, and right now they need that with what's going on with D2R from your standpoint, because from my understanding of what, because I bought the game, I still have yet to play it. I played the beta and whatnot, but I bought it so I could play the beta, but or pre-ordered it so I could play the beta, but like, it's one of those things that it's just frustrating to see that, like, hey, here's a great base to this. Let's just make it a little bit better. And it just needs to be, I remember when we were younger, when I would hear a Blizzard, it was very much in the same realm of what Valve used to be like. And to a degree, Valve is kind of still that way, just not as forward-facing with it. That same with, like, Bethesda. Before the games industry really started blossoming and blooming into what it is now, and another straight pillar of entertainment, you used to be able to, they were very consumer friendly. They were very consumer focused, like this, and like, it was just one of those, hey, I knew what I was getting with this product, and they allowed, look at all the games that came out of just the mod community alone, like, that had their birth within, Valve, Blizzard, and, fucking A, what was the other one? Oh, Bethesda. Just games like that have come out of just modding from their games and the community control within those games. It's just crazy to see where Blizzard's at right now. Take everything out that's, obviously from an ethical standpoint that's going on right now, but the company themselves, like, granted, they all Valve just is more focused on, obviously, their e-commerce side, but, the other two have now been bought. So it's a little different, but I don't know. I would just like to see, I want to see Blizzard get a win. And I especially want to see this team who worked on that was primarily Vicarious Visions, get a win on that, because we're going to talk about that in Button Mash. But I want to see these teams really find success, because like we've talked about before, the loud minority who is getting all the attention with all the shitty things that they did at Blizzard is taking away from the silent majority who are incredible people and talented people who are putting their heart and soul into these games that are being overshadowed by all the shittiness that happened. So, anywho, on my end with what I've been playing, just kind of all over the place, playing a little Back for Blood with you guys. Last week I got married, so I was a little bit busy doing getting married things, whatever you want to call it. So didn't have a ton of time to play games, but still was able to jump in Destiny, was able to get my kind of basic rotation of games in there. But I would like to jump into a few new games this week, kind of starting up. I need to get back to my Bethesda playthroughs that I'm closing in on 1 year until Starfield. So there's a bunch of games I need to get through and 100%, at least in terms of getting full achievements or platinums. Age of Empires 4 is out today, so I want to play that. We might have to play that later. And most importantly, what we've been talking about, all the new content from Faz. We really need to get in and play that shit, like tonight or something. So there's a ton of stuff on my end now that some of the craziness in my life has settled down a little bit. I can get back to playing games. I'm starting to wrap up one of my classes for 3D modeling and animation, so like it'll start to calm down a little bit, at least a little bit. So then I could tackle the fall season of games here that's going to be coming up that we're eventually going to get hit by. I didn't pick up Guardians of the Galaxy just because, not that I was worried about reviews or anything like that. I was thinking, I'm like, you know what, that's going to be a perfect Black Friday game. That'll be a good Black Friday $20 pickup kind of thing. Like a solid 8 that I want to play, maybe don't want to pay $60 right now to it, considering I just paid a shit ton of money for my wedding. So, stuff like that. So thank God for Game Pass though, because Age of Empires 4 dropping right now, installing it on Game Pass right now on the PC. All good. Anyways, go ahead.
I also wanted to say, like, as part of the D2 discussion, not to just like, I know I go on and I either talk about Halo or playing D2 constantly, and people out there are probably like, Jesus Christ, this guy needs to get a new game or a new hobby. But
I will say, like, this guy stinks.
I will say that, like, playing Diablo 2 is a lot of fun for me because I want to, beat Hell mode. I want to do some of the end game content because there's even more to do after Hell, especially with the expansion. But like, for instance, me and Adam this morning for a bit played Diablo 2, and I've done a lot of different builds. I've done like the ideal builds and stuff like that, if you will, where I've done the hammered ins and things of that nature. But one of the things that kind of opens you up to do is, like, once you've done a lot of that stuff and you have some of like the end game content like I have and some of the end game gear, now I made a druid with him, and it's going to be an elemental druid at the end of the day. Like, eventually it's going to be just casting, but just for shits and giggles, because I've never done it, I made it a werebear. So I got some gear that'll like make me be able to play as a bear form druid. And now I'm just going through the game with him playing as a druid that is just constantly in bear form. And it's kind of trolly, but it's just been a lot of fun to play something different than like completely meta builds. Like, it's fun to go off the grid a little bit and actually play the game in such a different way. I won't be able to get to end game content with it, but playing through in normal mode is going to be fun enough. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's always nice kind of stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit, like trying something different. So, especially in games, obviously. But no, that's dope, man. That's dope. Also, too, I played Apex for the first time in forever last night. And I got a message from Jason saying, like, you need to get PPAC on that Apex grind. And I was like, his computer just doesn't like that game. So
yeah, I don't know what it is about that game. It just doesn't run.
And I know this goes like against, it's probably a reason why a lot of people like Apex, but God, I wish there was just a solo mode in that, so I like didn't have to, because I hate playing with randoms in like BR games. Like, it's just not enjoyable. Like, nobody's ever on the same like wavelength or anything. Even with Apex, this is pinging system and everything like that. That's like second nature for everyone now at this point in every game that's developed. But I just wish
people pretty much want to do their own thing, and it's either they're going to go hot drop or they're going to hide everywhere.
Right, and that's why, like, I'll just drop solo and won't fill my team on like duos or something like that, and then I'm playing 2v1, which, like, yeah, if I want to challenge myself and like try to get better at the mechanics of the game and whatnot like that, like, I'd rather play like that and, try to be able to take on, multitasking with what's going on in certain, situations and things like that. That's fun, but like, the same time, too, I would also like to just worry about 1v1 as well, or, you know. But, anywho, I don't want to get too long in that because I can go all day about that shit. Anyways, though, Mike, let's head into Button Mash. If you're new to the show, Button Mash is where we run through and get you set up with the quick hit news of the past week in games before we head into our big topics for this week. So, kicking off Button Mash, we start with leave it to Snoop Dogg to deliver some of the biggest news of the day. Shocker. Snoop Dogg says Dr. Dre is working on new music for an upcoming Grand Theft Auto game. Snoop Dogg revealed the news while as a guest on the Rolling Stone's Music Now podcast. In an episode that will air on Friday, Snoop said, quote, I don't know Dr. Dre is in the studio. I do know he's making great fucking music, and some of his music is connected to the GTA game that's coming out. So I think that will be the way that his music is released through the GTA video game. In an article published on Wednesday, Rolling Stone says a representative from Rockstar Games declined to comment. There is a chance Snoop Dogg could be referring to the recently announced Grand Theft Auto Trilogy remaster. Dr. Dre was featured on the radio stations in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, but those were previously released songs. So could he be talking about Grand Theft Auto 6? Can we get the detox in Grand Theft Auto 6 finally? 20, 30 years later, whatever. Anyways, moving on. In an announcement that's sure to please the fan base, Activision has said that Call of Duty Vanguard won't take up nearly as much space on your hard drive as previous games in the series. The company announced the news in a tweet on Call of Duty's official Twitter page, stating that Vanguard's install size at launch would be significantly below previous Call of Duty releases. Quote, according to Activision, this is due to a new on-demand texture streaming tech expected to save up to 30 to 50% on next-gen consoles and PC hard drive disk space. They haven't said anything about last-gen consoles like Xbox One, PS4, but I would imagine this is probably more of a next-gen, quote-unquote, well, now current-gen feature in PC, obviously. It makes that a lot easier. So, anyways, though, Blizzard has announced that it will be canceling BlizzCon, online at least, initially planned for earlier next year, while making an effort to reimagine future BlizzCon events to be more, quote, safe, welcoming, and inclusive. In a blog post, the company said the decision was fueled by a need to redirect the energy Blizzard would normally spend putting on the event elsewhere, specifically towards, quote, supporting our teams and progressing development of our games and experiences. Blizzard still plans to make some announcements for its portfolio of games in February, around the time the event would have held. It just won't be in the event format used in the past few years. 343 Industries has revealed the date when the online multiplayer servers for several Halo games on Xbox 360 will close down, and that is January 13, 2022. Back on December 18, 2020, the studio announced these servers would shut down no earlier than 1 year after it posted the notice, but now a definite date has been decided. Quote, to date, we've juggled future-facing work and priorities with continued upkeep of Halo's Xbox 360 legacy services. Maintaining these legacy services today requires significant time and resources, which directly impacts the studio's ability to support current and future projects like Halo, the Master Chief Collection, and Halo Infinite, wrote 343 Industries in a statement. So, unfortunately, if you're still playing the original releases of these games on Xbox 360, you won't be able to play them online. You can still play single player and I'm sure LAN and stuff like that, but unfortunately, your system link, I should say, with 360 spelled. Unfortunately, you won't be able to do online matchmaking. Esports and gaming organization FaZe Clan has announced its plans to go public through a merger that will value the company as a whole around $1 billion. The merger is with a blank check company called B. Riley Principal 150 Merger Corp. Essentially a company that is founded and raises money specifically for the purpose of merging with or being acquired by another company. As part of the merger, BRPM will pay an estimated $291 million to FaZe, which will be used to fund its ongoing global efforts, including potential future acquisitions. BRPM will change its name to FaZe Holdings, Inc., and the combined company will trade under the ticker symbol FaZe. Shocker. Sorry. Fortnite's spooky month of crossovers continues with a new collaboration with Capcom and Resident Evil. Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine are the latest horror icons to drop onto the island and face the sideways cube monsters. The Stars team set includes Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine with their Stars uniforms. Chris also comes with his Hound Wolf Squad outfit from Resident Evil Village as an alt, and Jill will be able to don her look from Resident Evil 3 Remake. In addition to the character skins, the set includes the green herb back bling with red herb and blue herb alt styles, a typewriter saving keystroke back bling, the Hod Dodger pickaxe, and stun rod pickaxe. There's also a Broly Stroll emote complete with an umbrella. Blizzard has revealed the new name for the Overwatch character formerly known as Jesse McCree, Cole Cassidy. The official name renaming will take effect in-game on October 26th. In the official tweet announcement, Blizzard appears to be acknowledging Cassidy's name change as part of the game's lore, referring to Cassidy as a character running from his past and ultimately choosing to be honest with his team and himself about who he really is. And finally, Mike, Stardew Valley creator Concerned Ape's next game will be Haunted Chocolatier, a brand new sim that bears a strong resemblance to his previous work. It's so similar, in fact, that it looks like it could even be a sequel, though Concerned Ape isn't ready to confirm that one way or the other. In a brief reveal on YouTube, Concerned Ape showed off Haunted Chocolatier's beautiful new world. Much like Stardew Valley, it will be a top-down pixel-based sim, and it looks to have much of the same flavor as Concerned Ape's previous work. Some of the initial characters include Maddie, who asks what it's like to live in the big city, as well as Jeff and Nigel. Presumably, you will be able to date quite a few of them, like in Stardew Valley, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of other crossover similarities. So, Mike, that's Button Mash for this week. Anything you want to run back before we head into our big topics for this week?
Yeah, I love how Snoop just nonchalantly drops the news that Dr. Dre is making new music. It's kind of crazy. I remember, like, probably in the late 2000s, which is wild that it's like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Late 2000s, early 2000 teens, I guess they call it. I don't know what, the early 2010s.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Dr. Dre fans being like, yo, whenever Dr. Dre drops this new shit, it's over for all these like rappers like Lil Wayne and stuff. And it's like, and then I just remember like Mike Collins being like, yeah, when he drops some new fucking music.
Yeah.
Like, when's that happening? Like, and now, I mean, obviously it's finally potentially happening. So, hey, I guess it took GTA to do it, but hopefully the rumors are true and hopefully he makes some new music. 'Cause, I mean, everyone can kind of fuck with Dr. Dre a little bit. Feel like,
for sure.
Unless you're like a diehard Eazy-E fan and or family member. You know, because Dre Day only meant Eazy's payday. But nevertheless, it is what it is. I don't have to go back into the history of rap feuds and diss tracks, which, like, by the way, if you're a hip hop rap fan and you've never heard Dre Day or Real Motherfucking G's by Eazy-E, you need to do yourself a favor and go back and listen to them, because those diss tracks back then were legit. And it came from a time and period where you believed, like, when Biggie and Tupac were beefing, when Dre and Eazy were beefing, like, you thought those people could actually go and kill each other. Like, not that, like, I condone that type of behavior,
No,
but those were the stakes back then.
But
it's a little different than now.
I mean, potentially that did happen. So
Yes. So, I mean, no one knows who did it, like, but people have their thoughts and everything, but no, you got to go back and listen to that music. And outside of that, obviously, January 13th, 2022, we'll pour one out for Halo 3 and how important it was for a lot of different reasons. As far as Halo 2 is concerned, obviously one of the most pivotal games in history as far as the online play and everything. Mm-hmm. But Halo 3 definitely expanded upon that. So, you know, going to be sad for that day. And then Adam Marsh is going to be thrilled about the Haunted Chocolatier because he's a Stardew Valley guy, rightfully so. I've heard great things about it. I haven't played it myself, but I know Adam was a big Stardew Valley fan, so I'm sure he's excited for that. And, I mean, Fortnite's doing all they can to try to get me to come back. Can't come back. Can't do it. And I'm still like team #fuckphase. So it's cool that they're going public, I guess, but I won't be supporting it. So
no, yeah, I agree. How about this for a question? Which do you think comes first? A brand new, full featured Dr. Dre album. I'm not just talking like one song, whatever. A full length Dr. Dre album. or Half-Life 3.
What the hell?
And now it doesn't need to be named Half-Life 3, just like it does, like Dr. Dre doesn't need to put out Detox or anything. Like, he could just put out a new album, just like Half-Life 3. There's eventually going to be a Half-Life 3. We saw, now that Alex is a thing, like, there's going to be a Half-Life 3. It may not be called Half-Life 3. It may be, hey, here's the next mainline Half-Life game that's just a standard PC game, not a VR game, yada yada. But like, which do you think comes first? An album from Dr. Dre or that?
Probably an album from Dr. Dre, because when it comes to, unfortunately, when it comes to like Valve, I just don't believe that they're actually going to make it unless like they're absolutely positively forced to, I guess. Like, I just don't think Half-Life 3 is anywhere coming soon. Like, I feel like they're waiting for another generation to pass before it, which might be to some surprise or disappointment to fans, but like at this point, I mean, god damn it, this question's like is actually harder than you think, because I don't think either is going to happen anytime soon, to be honest.
Well, at least
I believe
at least now Source 2 is going to be out, so
yeah,
I could at least see the ball moving a little bit quicker.
I think there's a new Counter-Strike before a new Half-Life, and I think a new
100%.
Counter-Strike's still a long way away. But as far as Dr. Dre is concerned, like, him making a new album is like, I believe like whatever he's doing now is just going to wind up being an EP. Like, I don't think it's going to be his full-length album. I believe he's just making a few songs for GTA, which is like cool, but like I'm sure people would love to see a new album from him. You know what I mean?
No, 100%.
So I would go with Dr. Dre's going to come out with a new album. I just don't think either is going to happen though.
Like, in theory, and I'm not saying either is easy by any stretch of the imagination, and in theory, getting a music album out, the turnaround time for that is typically shorter than a development cycle for a fully fledged AAA game.
You would think.
Yeah. But we're also talking about Dr. Dre, who like was like, hey man, Detox coming out. It's coming out, baby, in like 20 years
it's later. It's like 05.
Yeah.
Like, he was like saying Detox is coming out in 05.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure, we're ready for it, man. And like, we graduate high school, we graduate college, I get married, and we're still fucking waiting for it. It's like the motherfucker who did the Casper slide, and it was like, part 3 coming out real soon, and it's like fucking 1990 he's putting that shit out, and we're still playing it today. Like, where the fuck's the Casper slide part 3? Like,
literally. Fucking
A, man. Anyways, though,
speaking of, your DJ didn't even fucking play the Casper slide.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed by that. I'll be honest, I hate wedding DJs. Like, adamantly hate wedding DJs. I think they're so cringy. I think they're this and that. I thought our guy did okay. Like, he didn't do a lot of like, oh, like, check this out. Oh, welcome to couple. Like, he did the stuff, the welcomes and whatnot. Like, that's totally fine. But like, he let the wedding talk for itself instead of like, hey, I'm going to MC this. There's a difference between being a DJ and an MC. You're trying to MC this. Like, some of these guys try to MC this thing. No. I want you to DJ it. You could talk a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. But like, let us have fun. But yeah, he didn't play that. I threw a couple of songs on our wedding playlist. He just didn't fucking play, which I was mad about. I wanted to hear Tiptoe 4 by Riff Raff. And see like all of like one side of my family who was a little more conservative than the other kind of be like, wait, what? Who's like all dancing on the dance floor, like. but yes, yeah, I was a little pissed about that. Casper
kind of reminded me of the DJ from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Brutalski.
It's Bertrand and Analutsky. You get the hell off my lawn.
Like, hold on a minute, Carl. We got him for another couple hours.
I mean, things could be worse. The priest could forget your name at your wedding.
Yeah, that was a tough look too.
You were real pissed about that. You were more pissed than I think we were. You were like, what the fuck?
Like, how hard is it, man? Like, holy shit.
Lord have mercy on me as I beat this man's ass. Like,
literally.
The power of Christ compels you, god damn it. Anyways, though, Mike, let's move into our big topics for this week before we talk about my wedding getting shellacked again and the priest forgetting our names. My last name's White. It's not that hard. Anyways. Zen, peace, Travis. Anyways, let's head into our big topics, Mike. And of course, biggest topic of this week, we're talking Xbox. We finally saw new fucking campaign footage for Halo Infinite. Finally, the game's out in a little over a month. Yeah,
Allegedly.
like 5 weeks. Yeah, in your eyes, yes, quote unquote, allegedly. Which
I won't believe it till I play it.
I'm not gonna doubt you because you called.
Or is it just going to be an open? It might just be the open beta, and people like are going to pay for it. Or well, the multiplayer's free, so it might be considered an open beta. You never know.
Early access.
Yep.
Because then it really would be it's me, Austin! Oh, son
Literally.
of a bitch! Anyways, though, we finally saw some new footage on Halo Infinite's campaign that was very much welcomed, I think, by a lot of people who were ready to see, okay, for 14 months as it is now, like, since the last time we've seen this footage of this game, well, more, actually, I guess I should say, but, like, 14 months since it's been delayed, we're ready to see more of this game. We're ready to see more of the campaign. This is what, granted, yes, a free-to-play multiplayer experience. The majority of people are going to be playing that, but a lot of people play Halo for the campaign. Like, that's been a very traditional sense. Halo traditionally has had one of the more, narrative-based, narrative-heavy campaigns with first-person shooters. Really one of the first actual first-person shooter sci-fi ones, for sure, to implement having a cinematic narrative outside of that included, like cutscenes and everything like that actually provided true cinematic approach, compared to what we were used to seeing with, maybe Half-Life or things like that were all in-engine comparative. So it's really such a staple of Halo to learn about this and see what this kind of game is going to be, especially to hinting at it before last year when we got the deep dive on when they first showed Halo Infinite footage that, hey, this is going to be pseudo open world. This is going to be very large environments you're going through. And really what we saw this time around was a much more fine-tuned look at that. And really basically making this out to be, this is basically Halo meets Far Cry. And I mean that in the best possible way, where you're able to tackle this game in almost any way you want. You're able to, when you're on Zeta Halo, you're kind of able to go in different ways of this game and how to approach it. You want to take down camps first. You want to do, go and try to rescue different Marines that are located on the map, things like that. Like, you're able to really kind of approach this in almost like, I don't want to say a Breath of the Wild style fashion, but very much more open than a traditional Halo experience that, if we're talking CE, had big, open, expansive levels, but was still very linear in their fashion.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, though, Matt Purslow over at IGN has a really good write-up on it. Let's dig into that first, kind of set the scene for this, and then we'll kind of dig a little bit deeper into it. A new video detailing the Halo Infinite campaign has revealed brand new footage of the Master Chief's next mission, as well as an introduction to his new AI and some of the other activities that can be completed. Halo Infinite's campaign, which 343 Industries claims is the biggest Halo campaign to date, is set on the Zeta Halo, an open-world Halo ring where the Banished, a splintered faction from the Covenant led by the Brutes, have been settled. They've been building outposts which can be found on your travels and taken out, akin to similar outposts in open worlds like Far Cry. In the video, we can see Chief finding an outpost named Ransom Keep and scanning it for weak points. He then uses a rocket launcher to detonate a large silo, suggesting that each outpost may have different ways to shut them down. This is part of 343's intention to offer, quote, more freedom to take down the Banished. This chapter of the Halo saga will see the Master Chief working with a new AI companion known as the Weapon. Following the events of Halo 5 and Cortana's defection, the Weapon has been created to answer the questions of what happened to Chief's previous AI and to lock her down. It seems like, once again, the relationship between Cortana and Chief will be the spotlight for Halo Infinite. Also seen in the trailer is a glimpse at the upgrades tree, which includes enhancements for Chief's new grapple shot, as well as his thrusters, shield core, threat sensor radar, and a drop wall shield. Those thrusters can be used to quickly dodge out of the way of incoming attacks, while the drop wall shield functions akin to that to the Titan shield wall from Destiny. An amusing moment showing off the grappling hook, which sees Chief grapple onto a Banshee midair to hijack it. It all looks very dynamic and wild. We see a few new enemies, including flying skimmers, a new named villain called Jaga Redomini, who's said to be a sadistic Spartan killer, and something that calls itself the Harbinger of Truth and claims that the Forerunners were liars. We also see a new chief using a wasp, in the VTOL aircraft first introduced in Halo 5. The Wasp is summoned from a vehicle station, and we see Chief also had the option of other classic vehicles such as the Mongoose. This is our first look at Halo Infinite's campaign since we saw it at the Xbox Game Showcase in July of 2020, ahead of the launch of the Xbox Series X and S. Master Chief's latest adventure was set to be a launch title for Microsoft's next-gen consoles, but the game was delayed following blowback from Halo Infinite's graphics and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on its development timeline. So, it's obviously better late than ever, but I'm not gonna lie, I was starting to sweat a little on how close we'd be running up to launch date of December 8th with seeing more of this campaign, or were they just gonna let it ride and let people jump in and do their thing, which I'm sure nobody was expecting, but still, we're cutting it a little close to see, hey, we need to get basically a re-emergence of the campaign look. But there is clarity and there's a lot of polish done since then. Its initial reveal, that is. And a lot of the segments of the overview seem to be what fans have been asking for. A logical evolution of the formula of Halo's campaign. So, Mike, I gotta ask, where do you stand right now with the campaign? Does the narrative we've seen so far intrigue you at all with the Banished and kind of how, that's going to be taking what seems to be the first chapter of what will be an ongoing Halo story for this generation on Xbox with, I think a lot of people are expecting, hey, we're going to get updates to the game, we're going to get, or whether they're free, paid, whatever, like new chapters to this, to the campaign. So, if this is going to be the introduction of this new world of Halo, like, okay, cool. We're seeing right now, at least from right now, the Banished are the main focus. Is that going to be the first chapters? Are they going to carry through all of this, yada, yada. So, does that narrative intrigue you? What improvements stand out the most from where we were last year when we first saw this? And, do you still have any of those concerns from that package?
There's a lot to be happy about with what we saw. That's like, I think that can go without saying because, what we saw before was lackluster, and I think they acknowledged it, they addressed the concerns, and now we're moving forward, with a new, better looking experience, which I think everyone can say, this is pretty unbiased that was probably needed based on what we had seen previous. What I will say as far as what I saw from the campaign, I think let me start by saying it is disappointing that I won't be able to play campaign right off the bat. In fact, I probably won't touch or co-op, I'm sorry. I probably won't touch the campaign until co-op is available. Mm-hmm. And if I get spoiled by then, I probably won't anyway, because I'll just be playing a lot of multiplayer. Mm-hmm. I would love to, play co-op and play the campaign, and I'm hoping it's better than Halo 5. Mm-hmm. But personally, for my experience, Halo's just pretty much synonymous with like co-op for me. Mm-hmm. So I don't really want to play a game that I'm used to playing cooperatively without people that I normally play with, like you and Adam and stuff. Mm-hmm. Now I know that's first world problems and people are going to say boo-hoo, but I mean it's a big difference. It's a big deal breaker for me personally. So with all that being said and prefaced, I will say that what I saw was very interesting. I am curious to see what they do with the weapon, what they do with Chief in Cortana's story going forward, because it's something that people always kind of thought existed. People were always like, oh, like Chief and Cortana, are they, obviously she's an AI, how can they really be into each other? But Cortana has seen Chief do things that obviously humans can't accomplish by themselves, and she's been there to help him along the way, and Chief's seen Cortana do things that are pretty crazy too. So it's obvious that after Halo 4's iteration that there was something between the two of them. Obviously, as soon as they acknowledged the fact that was a thing, they sent her off in this interesting way. I will say it's kind of something that I've watched the cutscenes from Halo 5 just to kind of get the cliff notes for the story. Mm-hmm. say what you will about me for being a fan, but I just wasn't going to I wasn't going to play Halo 5's campaign. I just didn't want to. I didn't, see the merit in doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
I am overall a night and day difference. I'm super excited, and it's a night and day difference from the previous iteration of the campaign that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
As far as where the Banished fit into everything, I would see them as being, they did, expose a little bit, like the Forerunners are still around, much to, I'm sure, everyone's chagrin.
Mm-hmm.
They felt like pretty hollow antagonists, and people weren't really that thrilled about it. But I will say that they still, based on how intertwined they are with the storyline, they need to be in the game at some point. But nevertheless, I'm curious to see how they build out Chief in the weapon and Cortana's relationship. Like, how's Chief going to take the weapon? Is Chief going to welcome her in? Is Chief going to be looking for, I'm sure Chief's going to still be looking for Cortana. How is that whole dynamic going to go? That's what I'm more interested in, more so than the Banished, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Banished are going to be the primary antagonist, but I'm more curious to see how they build on Chief chasing after Cortana, and how Chief's relationship with the weapon is going to continue to unfurl or grow. And I will say, R.I.P. Craig. Craig got upgraded. He had a total makeover, so thank God for that. I'm pumped about that. But I think the narrative is really strong. I think that it's going to do a good job bringing people in, bringing the casual fans in, because at the end of the day, this is their moneymaker on the game, besides skins and things of that nature. They're relying on the campaign to make their money, because you're going to get the multiplayer for free. So it's kind of life or death for them that the campaign's good. Like I said, I will dive into it wholeheartedly and fully when I can play with other people. But as of now, I do feel like they made great strides and they made great growth decisions. As far as what you're going to be able to do, calling in vehicles, you feel like a super soldier, which it felt like in Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, not really Halo Reach, but Halo 4, if you played on easier difficulties, you certainly felt like a super soldier. When you played through on Legendary, obviously you got humbled a little bit, but people will complain about the hardest difficulty and say, oh, Chief's supposed to be a super soldier, it's not supposed to be that difficult. I feel like the good part about the Legendary difficulty in the past has been Chief is still a fucking super soldier, because look at how fast the Marines die, but you're still up against long odds. I feel like that's been one of the things that people might lose in translation when you play through Halo games, is you have to understand that from the lore standpoint, just how long of odds Chief has always been up against. You're talking about the onslaught of the entire human race should have been accomplished 3 times in these games. The human race should have been no more. It should have been over. And number 4. But against all odds, Chief perseveres, and by Chief succeeding, the human race, succeeds. So it has a little bit of Gears of War feeling, and it always has, in that sense that maybe Gears of War took that from Halo. That in Gears of War, one of the things that always brought me to it is just how big of a long shot you really were, and you always have been. And the same thing can be said for Halo. I do feel like I did make the comment to you that during the showcase, it seemed like they might have had God mode on, because the person playing would take damage and their shields wouldn't go down at all. So I am curious to see how the game actually plays, because if you're playing on a harder difficulty, you're not going to have God mode on all the time. How much damage you're going to be able to take, those are the things that they didn't answer. So we'll see what happens, but there's a lot of question marks still remain to be seen and remain to be answered. But overall, I'm excited, and I'm curious to see where they go from here. And that's the first time I can say I've been curious about a campaign of Halo since Halo 4.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think that's where a lot of people are standing, where they're actually seeing a lot of, that's why I say they're finally seeing a lot of the things that they've been asking for answered, where what they were hoping for realistically, at the end of the day, Halo 4 should have been a launch title for the Xbox One. And Halo 5 should have had more time to breathe. And I think because of the rush nature of getting Halo 5, we need this next-gen Halo experience to push sales of the Xbox One. They're dragging behind the PS4. Let's get this game out, yada, yada. And to its credit, it is one of the best-looking games on the Xbox One, but it's one of those things that also, too, for the sole fact of, I'm just so glad that 343 was like, hey, we got to dial down the fucking lens flare in this game. And
Yeah,
let's,
like you couldn't see.
yeah. So my thing is, I'm already way ahead on this game. Like, I'm already super happy about it. I'm super happy about just the changes they've made to this game comparative to Halo 5. And I'm one of those people who, like, is Halo 5 what I wanted? Does Halo 5's narrative fit within the lore of Halo? Like, in terms of, is this what I want moving forward for the Halo series? No, I'm aligned with everyone on that. It wasn't complete dog shit to, it wasn't like I wanted to gouge my eyes out like some people like have talked about. Like, man, I wish I could just erase my memory and, if I could, that'd be the one thing I'd go back and never do is play Halo 5's campaign. And it's like, no, you're being hyperbolic. Like, chill. So
I think like if you would have combined Halo 5 and hear me out here, because I can't think of a Halo game besides Halo 4 that's more like forgettable that people just like write off and don't give a shit about. If you could have combined Halo 4's campaign with Halo 5's multiplayer and released them together, like you said, release them on like a little bit of a delay for Halo on Xbox One, that would have been like the key to success, in my opinion. Because Halo 4's campaign was really solid. And even though I don't like Halo 5's multiplayer and I don't think it's that great, you can't deny the fact that it's like light years ahead of Halo 4 multiplayer wise.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, hell, at least the game was supported, unlike Halo 4. So like, what? At least you could say that, hey, 343 actually cared about that game, But anywho, but yeah, I definitely, what we saw, I thought was, while it was short lived, very much gave me, hey, this feels like the same. Like, I used Breath of the Wild as an example earlier, and yes, not in the sense of that much grandeur or those are going to be two different games whenever they're approached, but it goes back to the evolution that I keep talking about. The formula for Breath of the Wild was an evolution of the original Legend of Zelda game, where hey, you can literally you boot up the game as soon as you get out of the whatever, not resurrection chamber or whatever they call it, that Link was in, and you get out into, onto the Great Plateau for the first time. Like, from there, you can do whatever you want. Like, you can just go, if you're able to cheese it and get down off of the plateau and you can go right to Hyrule Castle and take on Ganon if you want. Like, you are able to do that. So why I say that is, this feels very much like an evolution of CE, where all this that I'm watching, you can take multiple different routes through CE levels that could be different, could be, have the same layout, but have a different approach, where this feels very much like I'm going to tackle things on this level that each one of these, whether it's outposts or things like that, are going to feel like these pockets within the Zeta Halo feel like they're going to be like levels unto themselves. And the expansiveness of that really feels like this is, if we were to make Halo CE again in 2021, this is what it feels like it would be. At least I'm hoping for, obviously, but from what I've seen, that's what I feel like we're going to get. And I'm kind of ready for that, because, well, don't get me wrong, I love Halo 2, Halo 3. I enjoyed Halo 4's the narrative of Halo 4 for the most part. Halo 5 was what it was, but I think I go back and want to play Halo CE the most from a gameplay standpoint, just for the fact of how much more grandeur, how less linear that game feels, even though it is a very linear game, but the presentation of that game, to me, feels much more grander in scale than the other two, just for the sole fact of, I know I'm playing you started A, make it to B kind of experience with Halo 2 and 3, and that's totally fine, because I love those games for what they are, and I think they're some of the best games, especially Halo 3, to come out within modern gaming, especially from a multiplayer standpoint. But from a campaign standpoint, this feels more in line of what we first experienced. It feels like it's going to be a breath of fresh air for this game, or for this franchise. And obviously the multiplayer being free to play, we're not too worried about that, because of the fact of, at bare minimum, this is going to be a game that everybody who has an Xbox can own and play. Hell, you don't even need to have an Xbox to own and play this. You can play it via the cloud. Like, you play it on your phone. So, like, anybody can get in and play this game at, you know, the cost of it at, you know, the least, if you don't have an Xbox, just getting a, you know, Game Pass Ultimate subscription or whatever. But point being, though, it's crazy to me that we waited this long to get this kind of update, and it's only 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest kicker. I was like, I could do it with another 5 minutes. Like, I want to walk me through taking out one of these camps. I want to see E3 style demo. And I know there's a lot that goes into E3 demos. Like, there have been countless documented times where development studios are like, hey, it took us a year to make this E3 demo. And Bungie historically with Halo 2's E3 demo, that was not indicative of Halo 2. That was like, we legitimately made that, and we were like, we're not going to be able to put this out on an Xbox. Mm-hmm. Like understandably. So I get it, but with the game this close to release, you could show me a side quest, you know, outpost that's going to be played on there. Like, I want to know what that feels like, how the flow of this game's going to feel. But overall, from what I saw, I was happy about it. I thought it looked like it ran well. It looked like the art direction for this game, while committing to its original art direction, was much more polished, much more, hey, we have the finer details of this. And, you know, a lot of people were pointing out the, I can't remember his name, but the leader of the Banished, when they were pointing out, oh, look at how much more detail is in his face and this and that, yada, yada. What people need to also keep in mind was that's a cinematic shot, like confirmed cinematic shot, compared to last year. Hey, this is an in-engine shot.
Yeah.
Two very different things. So, you know, it's definitely going to be very much, I still think, hey, we're going to come into this game hot, because if we only saw 6 minutes of this game, you know, 5 weeks out, like, we're going to be coming in hot, because this looks like it's going to be a relatively expansive game. Like, this isn't going to be a quick 5-hour campaign. Like, this is going to, you know, granted, maybe take between 10 and 20 hours to get done, I would think, because
have they said anything about it maybe being episodic, like kind of similar to like the way that they made Destiny?
I think there's going to be very much, and that's where I was kind of alluding before, that it's very much tongue-in-cheek right now, where they haven't said anything official that, hey, yes, you're going to be getting live update. Like, I thought that would be this deep dive of this of campaign would get, where they confirm a lot of that, or they talk about the future for this game, because very much so, if you're calling it Halo Infinite, there's already, you know, from the moment they said, hey, this is Halo Infinite, like, people are like, okay, this is going to be not live service, but this is going to be a game that very much, hey, like Fortnite or something like that, where you're investing into the base game here, and you're going to get content throughout the year, throughout its lifetime, I should say. So I'm expecting, hey, here is Halo Infinite's, you know, launch campaign, the the base story of this game or campaign that you're going to play through. Okay, cool. Maybe from the fallout of that, we're going to get, hey, here's the quote unquote DLC is just, here's the next update, you know, like, you know, a Taken King or Forsaken or something like that, that we're going to get a new area of the Zeta Halo ring or whatever that we're eventually going to just go into. So, you know, I still expect that. I was hoping we'd get confirmation on that, to be like, hey, yeah, that's going to happen, you know, just prepare for this not to be the only thing. We want you to invest in Halo Infinite long term on both sides of the coin with campaign and multiplayer. So I don't know. We'll see. Because I definitely don't think, with the game being free to play and you going and buying, needing to purchase the the single player portion of this game for $60, that is a big ask. Not that, like, I mean, I love Halo. I'm going to be buying the game. Not just on Game Pass. Like, I have it pre-ordered so I can get the Steelbook, because it's one of those franchises I want to get, the full experience, quote unquote full experience. I want to go and buy the physical version of the game. Like, but at the same time too, like, if people are being asked, hey, yeah, I want to play multiplayer, but they also want you to invest in campaign, and this to be one of those games. Hey, you buy Call of Duty, Madden, and the new Halo expansion each year, just like people buy the new Destiny expansion, Madden, Call of Duty, yada yada. That's it. That's all they buy. So I would imagine they want that to be this, and it's all going to tie into each other because it sounds like Microsoft's just making a platform for Halo now. So I think we will see episodic stuff. I'm shocked we didn't already, but
does my prediction of it getting delayed, do we count it if the campaign's delayed?
Yeah, I would.
Do you call that a delay?
Yeah, I would. I would, just because if you're asking me, it's still a package thing. Well, while I know it is, hey, we're releasing this kind of tongue-in-cheek 2 parts for the most part. Mm-hmm. At the same time, this is they're still selling this as one package. This is still being marketed as one package. So if the single player portion of this game is delayed, like, I wouldn't be shocked. Like I would still count that. I wouldn't, like, if that happens, I wouldn't be shocked. And I also would say, like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, that to me is a delay because it's still part of this whole package that we were supposed to get in, November of 2020 that we're now getting in December of 2021. So, yeah, I would count it.
But, all right, well, I hope it doesn't come to that, but you never know.
I think it's too far along. I personally think we're going to play this game on December 8th, but in what state will we play this game? We'll see. Anyways, Mike, let's head into our last news article while we wrap up the show here. Vicarious Visions, who we were talking about earlier in the show, will reportedly merge fully with Blizzard, dropping its old name. This comes from Natalie Clayton over on PC Gamer. As always, all the links that we go through on this show will be in the description. Go over there, give all the authors clicks. So, let's dive into it. Earlier this year, Activision celebrated the release of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 by announcing developer Vicarious Visions would be repositioned to solely support Blizzard games. Now, Polygon reports that the studio will drop its name entirely as it fully merges with the Warcraft maker. Sources at Vicarious Visions told Polygon that the name drop was announced at a town hall yesterday, and that while no new name has been confirmed, many suspect the studio will be rebranded as Blizzard Albany, in line with the studio's other satellite offices. Prior to the announcement, staff told Polygon that they expected Visions would continue to operate as its own entity under, but not explicitly part of Blizzard. While staff noted that this wasn't an entirely unexpected move, some felt blindsided by its positioning as a, quote, light and quick meeting. Bizarrely, management also made the announcement during a studio Halloween costume day, with Polygon noting that many employees were dressed up in spooky outfits when the news broke. Quote, for all the leadership talk about being more transparent in response to the lawsuit and resulting fiasco, the fact they decided to blindside us all with this feels about as far from transparent as you can get, commented one employee. That, quote, fiasco refers to Activision Blizzard's ongoing lawsuit with the two government bodies over accusations of sexual harassment, abuse, and discrimination. This week, the publisher's attempt to kill the lawsuit over a conflict of interest was denied, though it's unlikely Activision will stop trying to use the dispute between California's Department of Employment and Housing and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to its advantage. Vicarious Visions leadership reportedly told staff that no layoffs are planned as part of the merger. In May, Activision similarly pivoted Spyro developer Toys for Bob into a Call of Duty support studio, though it remains to be seen if the studio will similarly be absorbed by one of the publisher's big hitters. So, I have a feeling this won't be the last time we hear of restructuring like this within Blizzard moving forward, just because I feel like there's going to be... I feel like we're still only at the tip of the iceberg with the whole Blizzard fiasco, if you want to call it that, the shittiness to come out of Blizzard. I think we're only kind of just touching the surface a little bit, but I guess when you think about it, though, it's... we've known that Vicarious Visions merger for quite some time now. A complete merger into another arm of Blizzard is an interesting play, especially too when you consider everything that they've done. Sure, they've been supporting studio with Blizzard at times, with, as we were just talking about, Diablo 2 Resurrected, but also really making strong performing titles of their remakes, almost to the level of, really, I don't think it's that crazy to think of Blue Point Studio now under Sony's wing, but, to that level of quality with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 and the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, like, remakes that really have been really, really well received. So does the naming portion of this matter, or is this just something that, many fans will just find unfortunate? Does the individuality of this, even though they haven't necessarily had that for too long, in terms of, like, they've been taking on Blizzard projects and things like that necessarily won't change too much outside of now they're going to be solely focusing on Blizzard projects and, being a support studio of that nature. Does the naming portion really matter? Or is that something just, that's just going to be a unfortunate casualty to come out of this whole situation?
I don't know. I can say, as someone who worked for a company that had a corporate merger, not something, it was probably actually considered bigger, I suppose, but I think, from my experience being on the inside, the only people that really know what's going on and what to expect are the people at the top. And then even then, I feel like they're either ill-prepared or they have some shortcomings when it comes to what to expect when something like this happens. Because I know Vicarious Visions wasn't huge, but when two companies like this merge, the people that don't have any clue what it actually means are the people that are in the trenches every day making the games. Those types of people are kind of left in the lurch and they don't know what to expect. What does this mean for my job? Am I being replaced? Am I going to lose my job? Oh, great. Now there's more people to compete for promotions. There's more people like this. There's more people in the way for X. There's this, there's that. All this other stuff that happens that people at the top don't account for, or they don't care to account for, or they don't even think to account for. All those things happen internally with their employees. And a lot of the times, like I said, they don't even expect or know it's coming. The naming rights might not be that big of a deal if Vicarious Visions' only work was happening with Blizzard, but it's a bigger deal for Vicarious Visions than for Blizzard, because now Vicarious Visions all of a sudden have no leverage. They can't make their own games if they don't want to. They could wind up being stuck like in Space Jam whenever Michael Jordan's going to go one-on-one with the Toon Stars, and he's going to be, put on Moron Mountain to play one-on-one against people and lose for the rest of eternity. Like, that could be what Vicarious Vision winds up doing. They could be stuck on Moron Mountain, aka Blizzard Activision, and just remaking their old games and barely profiting off of it. Like, is a Diablo 1 remake in the works? Is a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 coming? Is Thug remastered coming? What all remasters are coming? Because, yeah, Warcraft 3 Remastered wasn't what people wanted it to be, but if you play the game for the campaign, it's actually pretty solid. Mm-hmm. And I loved Tony Hawk 1 and 2. So are they just going to be relegated to only making remakes? That doesn't feel really great for Vicarious Visions and the people that work for them. Those are all things that kind of get lost in translation when you talk about these sorts of mergers, these sorts of changes. The only people that really benefit from it are like the higher ups, it seems like. Everyone else at the bottom and down are the ones that kind of suffer from it. So I will say, if their only goal was to make games for Blizzard, congratulations, that's been accomplished. But if some of the people that were working for the studio and working very hard on games, because they have a lot of hard workers there, and people that, might have thought, oh, maybe we'll make our own games soon. And by all intents and purposes, whenever they make Diablo 2 Resurrected, they're making their own game. Mm-hmm. But, they're just kind of putting polish on an old gem. Like, are they going to want to make their own games? Now they're not going to have that option unless Blizzard will grant that wish. And Blizzard has had a lot of bad publicity, so maybe they wouldn't want to like deny Vicarious Visions that right or that opportunity. But you never know until, push comes to shove what's going to happen whenever it comes to these games. Or does Blizzard already have all these ideas for them that they're literally just going to be like, yeah, we're going to have you make a new Tony Hawk, or we're going to have you remake Tony Hawk's Underground, or we're going to have you remake this, which, like, again, I wouldn't be mad about it. In fact, I would love it. But is that what Vicarious Visions wanted? I guess we'll never know now because it doesn't really matter because they've lost. You kind of lose all your rights whenever you have this merge. Like, are you going to have a say in things? Maybe at some, like, at some points in time, like you'll have a little bit of a say in it, but at the end of the day, basically Blizzard can just go ahead and flex their muscle and just be like, yeah, we're just going to have you do this. We don't really care what you have to say about it. So I think that's something that happens in these mergers that people might not really have foresight for. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about it though.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
Because on my experience, basically, the employees of the company that we acquired didn't want to change to our standard, and we certainly didn't want to go to their standard because if they were doing better, they wouldn't have been like, we wouldn't have purchased them or acquired them. You know what I mean?
No, and that's the thing. I personally have never been a part of that, so from firsthand experience, I have no idea what that would be like. But kind of looking in from the outside, when we're looking at from at least the games industry, it usually seems relatively... Now, the biggest worry was obviously, hey, are there going to be layoffs with this? Or are we going to see jobs lost because of this? And no, because realistically, there's no justifiable reason to see that, considering, hey, this development team just released, one of the best, sports games to come out in a while, and or one of the best remakes, for this past generation, and one of the best games of this past year. So, like, how are you going to necessarily turn around and say, hey, this was profitable and, highly successful both critically and commercially, to then, hey, we're just going to just start axing everyone's job because of that. They're asking for trouble with that. But point being,
you never know, because they might say, like, we already have these people at Blizzard that are either cheaper or whatever.
True.
Do we really need, like, are these other positions redundant? Like, those are the things that people... especially people that are making the decision to have the merger, those are the types of things that they already know, but they're going to, they'll dress it up. They'll say, oh, there won't be job loss with this merger. But like people, they're going to close an entire studio or something, but they'll create new jobs within Blizzard that will now be open to the public. So was there job loss? Technically, no, because there's still the same number of jobs. But at the end of the day, the people that were working now lost their jobs. You know what I mean? There's always ways that they can like put lipstick on a pig, and like they can always polish a turd. Like corporations always, and they're king at it. That's why that's why corporations are always so successful, because they're really good at polishing turds and making, and like spinning press the way that they want it to be spun.
No, definitely. And that's kind of like, it's hard to really imagine what the games industry would look like if, if we didn't, like, the games industry continues to get bigger and bigger, but it also keeps getting smaller or bigger in its segmentation. Like, in terms of, like, people are worried about Microsoft becoming a monopoly, and that's not going to be the case. It's just not. Like, the way that it would need to be much more than that. But you do look at the amount of studios that are being gobbled up by either Sony, Microsoft, or third parties as well, that the AA experience is pretty much gone at this point.
Yep. Indie devs are getting like
it's either
gobbled up left and right.
Yeah, and indie devs too, but you're either an independent developer or you're AAA. Like that space in between of, hey, we're going to put out this AA experience that, turns out to be a cult hit or something like that, is gone. Like the $40 game is gone now for the most part. Outside of, independent studios or things like that, or, some rare, exceptions do lie with, hey, Amazon could put out New World for $40, and that's, a games with service that's hopefully going to have a long life cycle. So that's a little different, but for the most part, it's, anymore it is indie to AAA. And that's what worries me, that I want more. That's fine if you have, hey, we're purchasing this team. Like it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, what, guys or teams like Obsidian do, teams like what is it? Who made We Happy Few? It's on the tip of my tongue. Compulsion Games. Studios like that who typically have a smaller, kind of development staff, even as a AAA developer, even as somebody who's a quote unquote AAA developer. So, or now I should say at least, but it's just going to be interesting to see kind of what the games industry looks like after really all of this. And what really kind of like stands out with, these studios that, hey, they make they're smaller teams, but they've been doing great work under a bigger publisher, but now they're kind of being merged into, these huge development teams or huge publishing where they become just a part of the publishing brand itself, like a satellite studio of a publisher developer, like, a Blizzard, for example, or before Bethesda, before Bethesda was owned by Microsoft, Bethesda Rockville, Bethesda Austin, that kind of satellite studio. So it's really going to be, I'm really curious to see how this all plays out and what really the future of that middle ground looks like, because we're starting to see that slip farther and further away as we kind of move into, hey, games don't take, they don't take $1 million to make, they're like $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, more. So it's really going to be interesting to kind of see where we lie. Like, I'm curious in 5 years what this looks like with all these studios getting gobbled up in the space for that $40 title. Where did it go? Is there anything that fills that? Is it literally, hey, you're independent or you're AAA? It's almost like music. It's almost like the music industry for the most part, which is not a good thing. So anyways, though, Mike, it's going to wrap up our news for the week. Before we wrap up the show, let's head into Party Chat. And if you're new to the show, Party Chat's where we propose one question at the end of each week of the show that we want to discuss with you. It could be as simple as, what are you playing right now? What was your favorite story beat that you most recently played? Or it could be like things like more in depth, like talking about mental health in gaming and whatnot. But after answering the question ourselves, we kick it over to you to tweet your responses to the question over on our Twitter at GPGC Podcast or our email at bonusaccessory@gmail.com, and we'll read some of the responses the following week. Last week's question, what does the next evolution to the Game Pass formula look like? And Carl G said, I think it will eventually see a fully branched path that only offers streaming to go along with their inevitable cloud gaming device. I'm guessing he's talking about Microsoft. So interesting. Yeah, I definitely could see that happening. Mike, this week's question, since we're getting into spooky time and Halloween's this weekend, I want to know, what are some elements that make a great horror/scary video game, well, good or scary in this sense? Like some of your favorite horror titles, some of your favorite scary video games, what do they do well and why do you think they do it so well? And, what makes a basis to a great horror video game?
I think for me, when it comes to horror games and in particular, like one of my favorite games of like the horror genre was Amnesia, or is Amnesia, I guess I should say, because it's still like one of my favorites. And when you look at that game, you ask yourself like, oh, what did they do in that game to make it so special? And I think having very good storylines is important. And you don't have to necessarily be able to fight back for it to be a proper scary game. Mm-hmm. Using sound to their advantage is one of the things that they did for the first time, as far as like Amnesia was like, they used distant visions of what you thought were ghosts or what you thought were like the enemies. And they used shadows like in an expert way. Mm-hmm. This is the Dark Descent, that is. And then they also combined all that with utilizing the sound to their advantage to bring those scary visions to life. And they let people's minds play with themselves, basically. Like, whenever you're in the dark and your eyes haven't quite adjusted yet, and you might have just saw a scary movie or played a scary game, and your mind starts playing tricks on you and has you imagining things. Mm-hmm. They did that really well. So those types of things are what I look for in a scary video game that I think is, tip top shape. Utilizing like the fear factor. I'm not a big like jump scare guy. So I'm very much someone who enjoys building up tension and then releasing the tension, but I don't like to use jump scares to release that tension.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I love building atmosphere. I love building tension from just environmental storytelling and things like that. I always thought that's why one of the reasons why I love Resident Evil 7 so much. There's not a ton of jump scares, but the atmosphere and the environmental storytelling is so perfectly done in that game, especially 3/4 of the game. And especially when you're in the Baker Mansion. But like when I think of great horror games that I played that really do that well, Outlast is one of them, except for there's one jump scare towards the beginning of that game that gets me every single time that is really good because you're not expecting it. But outside
when you're like in the bathroom or whatever,
when you go into the library, like at the beginning, like you just open the one door and it's just the dude's fucking body falls. So that gets everyone every time. But outside of that, I love, it's very much taking, a note from Amnesia that is another great, horror video game. But like, I love that feeling of helplessness that, listen, you have no way to fight back. You just literally have to find a way to survive. Whether that is hiding, whether that is running, whatever. But you cannot fight back. There's no way you win this. You cannot fight back. So I love that you're put in those situations of, no, you're going to feel helpless and you're going to know you feel like we're going to tell you you're helpless. There is no way that you're able to get out of this. And I love those style of games because it's so unique. I think there's more ways to tackle games in that fashion. Like I think the design web for those games is so much broader and so much more intricate compared to, which there's nothing wrong with. Obviously, I love Resident Evil and I'm a huge fan of the series, but survival horror is a little different in that sense where there is an action element. There is a way to, okay, yeah, I could shoot a zombie if I have the bullets to do so. And it's still interesting in that manner of, I have limited ammo. What am I going to do? I need to have resource management with this. Like, but at the same time too, you could fight your way out or you could run, where in some other games, it's like, okay, well, now I only have a lantern or a flashlight or, an Outlast situation. I have a camera that has night vision. Like, I have to just...
has batteries.
It has batteries, so there's more research management. But, I think there's more of a interesting pathway to solving the puzzles that those games provide you with. So, a lot of really good horror games out right now. That's the one really good thing that's came out of modern gaming in the past, 10 years or so, is just, it's the rebirth of the horror video game. And now that there's so much more of a cinematic approach to a lot of games, that people are really able to kind of take off with that. So I'm really, really looking forward to playing some horror video games this weekend. Clearly, as I'm asking this question, but anyways, Mike, I think that's going to do it for our episode this week. Why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, talk about all we talked about today, Halo Infinite and Vicarious Visions, all the nerdy stuff we talked about today on today's show. Where can people find you online and talk about it?
You can find me on Twitter at TOYSXLDIER. That's Toy Soldier, but the second O is an X. Or you can find me on Twitch at MP_Toy Soldier.
Nice. And as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travelus, on most internet platforms, including at Travelus_ on Twitter. That's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travelus_, same as Twitter. And want to play some video games with me, you can do so over on Xbox Live. It's just regular old Travelus. That's TRAVLESS, no underscore. And this, ladies and gentlemen, has been your newest episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox Game Pass, and of course, PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us, rate us, review us, all of that jazz I tell you every week, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and of course, our dope giveaways. And with that being said, Mike, that's going to do it for our episode this week. Thank you everyone so much for listening, sharing, and being a part of our growing community. Game on, wash your hands, listen to the doctors, Black Lives Matter, and we will see you next week.